The views, statements, and opinions expressed on the Coming Home podcast do not represent Fairleigh Dickinson University, its views, or affiliates. The content of these episodes are solely focused on the stories, memories, and journeys of FDU alumni. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first official installment of Fairleigh Dickinson Coming Home. I'm Michael Cannetti.
And I'm Mike Ramos.
And we're here to talk to you about not just our experience at Fairleigh Dickinson, the memories we've had, and hopefully along the way, we'll bring on guests and talk about their memories and their journey since their time at Fairleigh Dickinson and beyond, and what they've been up to as a way of kind of bringing people back to what it was like in their time and really talking about the heart of the university and what all of us loved about it and our experiences and the memories and the friends we've made and the opportunities it's provided us since beyond our graduation days.
Yeah, I think it's also important to include when we get into our storytelling, what's actually happening currently at the university, right? So whatever things that are happening going on now oftentimes relate to what is happening, somebody's story or my story or your story, what's happening or has happened to us in the past.
Yeah.
And maybe current events or things like that, and we'll figure out where this thing actually evolves to, because I really, like you said, bringing people home, coming home and telling us where you've been, where you're going, we'll be able to hopefully bring all that full circle.
I think one of the biggest challenges we face in the world is the idea of, especially this like post-COVID kind of world, like the reconnecting and the communication aspect of it. Because once people move on into their careers, it's hard to keep track of them and see where they're going. And so I'll start. I'll tell you a little bit of my backstory, right? So I went to Fairleigh Dickinson from 2000 to 2004. I was class of 2004. I was a film student. I grew up on Long Island. I still live on Long Island to this day. I found Fairleigh Dickinson because it had a film program that I thought was just amazing. And I really connected with the campus and the opportunities that I thought it could bring for me. Did my 4 years there, and while I was there, I stayed, in contact with a lot of my peers as well as my professors. And since then, I've worked in various parts of the industry with film and production and television and commercials, and also a lot with higher education as well. And all the while, since then, I went on and got an MBA at one university and then an MFA at another university. And while I was there, I stayed in touch with my professors, and in particular, Howard Lebov, who was my professor while I was there. And even during my MFA, I reached out to him and sort of did like an interview for him. I interviewed his, about his experience and his journey. And then a few years after that, it was an opportunity they were looking for an adjunct professor. And I reached out to Professor Lebov and said, hey, I want to have that opportunity. I want to be able to teach there for a couple of different reasons. One, I've been teaching for about 11 years now. And two, I wanted this opportunity to give back, right? To sort of like pay it forward. And I'll tell you a true story. My freshman year, first semester, 8 o'clock in the morning, very first day of school, I was put into like a very advanced math class, far more than I probably should have been in, but I think I just guessed well on my placement exam. And after the first class, the professor, who literally just wrote equations on the board for, no joke, 2.5 hours, I said, I'm going to fail this class. Day one, freshman year, 18 years old. I went up to the professor and I said to her, ma'am, I'm going to fail this class. There's no way I'm going to pass this class. And she said to me something that I'll never forget. And I tell this to my students every semester since I've been teaching. If you show up to every one of my classes, go to all my office hours, do every assignment, and try, we'll see what happens at the end of the semester. Mathematically, I probably had about a 40 in the class, but she gave me a passing grade. And I went back to her in the spring semester and said, Professor, I failed this class. And she goes, no, you didn't. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, did you do what I told you to do? And I said, yeah, I went to every class, every office hour, the whole thing. And she's like, I told you to do that. Was your homework for the whole semester. And you followed that rule and you passed. I said, this is not high school anymore. This is college. I reward hard work and putting in the effort. And to me, that really sat with me for a long time and really kind of set a precedent for me. And that's how I convey to my students is, show me the effort, show me that you're there, you're trying, and you want to work at this. I don't care that you're not great. You don't have to be great. Nobody's great.
Right.
And we'll give that reward and we'll see how you do. And that was sort of my way of paying it forward by having the opportunity to go back and teach at Fairleigh and do the same thing. And I love it.
And I think it's a great story, and it resonates for me as I tell you about my situation at Fairleigh Dickinson, because while I thought I was going to be an accountant going into college, I was going to fail an accounting class very quickly. I needed to make a change. And, this was 1994, 1995. The internet was just coming online. Like it barely had blue screens. It barely had computer graphic interfaces, right? And I knew I wanted to be a part of it. So I went and reached out to same department. It was at Beckton School at the time. I wanted to figure out this internet thing. What's this internet? What is this web design stuff? How can I use the department to do graphic design and web and film and business and figure out what the internet was? And so while I had to take the core courses at the same time, I was taking a ton of what I guess we were calling them independent studies, just trying to figure out what was HTML, take a graphic design class so we could figure out what interface design was. And I always attribute Fairleigh Dickinson to the kind of university that gives a person an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a program, back then there was no program. They made an opportunity for that. And so, I spent 4 years figuring it out, right? And the school gave me an opportunity to figure it out. So I love that. As far as how do I find FDU, I literally knew a guy who went to the school. I respected him for who he was, the decisions he made in high school. And I just, was somebody I kind of looked up to. And I said, if he chose FDU, it must be reputable. I applied to one school. I got into one school and I couldn't have been happier. My career jumps just a little bit further into, I went and got an MBA also after several years of being out of school. I've gone on to be a web developer and designer and database admin early in my career for places like Intel and Merck, and then moved on to a lot of agency work where I was doing just a ton of website development. And I needed to figure out what digital marketing was because it was all coming online early 2000s. It was, how do you email market? How do you buy ads? Here comes social media. How do you build a business online? So I've really evolved my career from just building a website to really building business online. And that's what I do today. But I always attribute it back to FDU giving me the opportunity to learn the internet and then, grow from there.
So I wanted to piggyback on that. So one of the things that I often say about Fairleigh Dickinson is it forced me, or it gave me the opportunity to teach myself how to learn, right? And not just learn whatever was my subject that I was studying, but it forced me to want to learn new things. Like, now with this big push for AI, I have this want to learn it and understand it because, most people will go to school for something, like you said, you started out as an accounting major and then you evolved as a person while you were there and ended up coming out as something totally different, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things is it allowed you to experiment and learn and teach yourself how to evolve and how to keep moving yourself forward, which I think is a big factor that people don't even think about when it comes to college is how do I absorb knowledge better and grow my skills and grow myself in that way.
That's right. And I've been motivated to always learn the next best thing because of that same experience, right? So you just kind of pointed out the AI thing. I mean, I've always been kind of labeled as a scrappy guy, right? I figure it out, go figure it out, right? And so figure out the internet, figure out digital marketing, figure out this new AI thing. But I do, while I definitely have some military experience and drive and discipline, I also have that want to always be involved in the next best thing. And it makes me a better person to know that I'm reading the newest stuff, that I'm, hands-on experiencing the newest, and I hope that really the students that are at the school now are getting that. And I hope that, at the same time, they're also realizing that everything they do in life, I'm going to take a half a step back on that. They need to figure out how to make money with it, with the skills that they take out of school, right? It's not just about getting an education. There's a job on the other side of that. There's a career on the other side of that. And so, the university set us up for success in making money, in being, successful. And, I can say that I know friends or people who went to other universities and they're still struggling to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. And 40 years later have school loans that they have never paid off. But that's, I digress from that, from those kinds of conversations. But it's important, that the university gave us those tools and those tasks.
You know what else, speaking, on a broader scope of the university, right? So there's something about the campus too, right? Especially like I went to the Madison campus for all 4 years. That's where I teach now, or the Florham campus as they right before I started teaching, which was in January of 2023. I went to campus when it was middle of January. Campus was empty. They were on winter recess, and I just walked around the space by myself and just kind of took it all in. And I had this sort of like flashes of memories from when I was, 18 years old, and then I was 41 years old at the time, or 40, and I had this sort of like new appreciation for this place, right? That has its own sort of ecosystem and its own sort of community to it. And you walk by the rock and you see the mansion, or you walk down the paths and you walk by the library, and you walk around the dorms, and it just has this sort of cool flow to the campus, and just this sort of space, right? I don't know what it was, but it gave me this sort of weird wave of emotions, and it was just like this feeling of like nostalgia. And that's where this idea of kind of coming home hit for me, right? Because it was like I'd been struggling for a while to find my place, right? What my purpose was. And I knew that I wanted to teach. I knew that I loved the teaching aspect of it, and I've been teaching at other places. But the moment that I landed there, and I was like, the first day that I started like teaching my students in my first class there, I was like, this was it. Like, this to me was that light bulb that came on, and I was like, wow, I felt it. And I like seeing students have the aha moment where the light bulb goes off in their minds, and it clicks and they get it, right? And I teach classes in post-production, and I teach class in content creation, like podcasting and YouTube, and I also teach a class on what's called Career Path, which is sort of like a professional development class. So I talk to them about like, hey, you may come out as a freelancer. What does that mean? How do you pay yourself? How do you get a 1099? What do you do if you want to form an LLC? How do you get insurance for a business, or how do you buy equipment under a company? That kind of stuff. Things that they want to start thinking about if they want to become an independent web developer, or graphic designer, or an animator, or a production major, or whatever they want to do. They want to become an accountant. They want to form their own LLC at some point, right? How does that work? What does that entail? And you see them get lit up. They're like, wow, I could own my own business. I could take the knowledge that I've learned in this place and start my own company someday. And I'm like, yeah, why not? You could do whatever you want, as long as you have the drive and the willingness to evolve and do those sort of things, you can. I have a student of mine that graduated this past May. She started her own LLC doing basically like marketing management for companies. She's based in Delaware and has companies in New York and New Jersey and Delaware. In the last 6 months, she's just been growing her business because she's a hustler. And she took the knowledge she learned in her school of the arts major, plus taking some business courses as well while there, and now started her own company. And then she calls me up. She's, "Oh, you never believe how I got this client. I did this, and she sent me a quote today of like, "Oh, I want to pitch this by a client. What do you think?" And, I encourage my students to reach out to me and say, "Hey, stay in touch," because not just me, but your faculty that you worked with or your other classmates you might have graduated with, those are going to be the people you want to partner with and build your network of people. And I think that's really, really important that people don't realize.
Yeah, and you started that monologue with going back to the campus,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the luxury of going to both campuses. Well, I say both, even though there's four of them, but going to TNEC, starting at TNEC, and heading, or now called the Metro, right? The Metro campus, and then headed back over to Florida Medicine. And while they're two completely different environments, and I got to live on campus in both environments, now that I'm on the board of governors, and the only time I go back to the university is when I'm at a meeting with a supervisor, with somebody from the administration, excuse me, and I get to walk the campuses, both of them, right? So the bridge on the Metro side is a perfect example of this kind of living, growing community space that just was a bridge.
Yeah.
So many years ago, it was just a bridge, and it separated, the Hackensack from TNEC. There are new buildings. There are buildings that have been renovated on the inside. There are experiences on and off campus that are just different these days. And I get nostalgic when I get to go onto campus and see these things. And I'm like, that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Or I'll give you an example. At on the Madison side or Florham side, there is the dormitories down in the bottom. And for some reason, the name of the building is
the Park Avenue building.
The Park Avenue, yeah, the big one, the big dorms there. I was the very first, I want to say person, but class to actually sleep and live in that building my senior year. It was all new. It was all fresh. We were like, hey, that's so interesting. We watched the thing get built from the ground up, and we were the first to live in it. So I thought that was just amazing. But then, I talk with a lot of people that say their Roxton experience was the one thing that they will remember. And it's just give me one more second. It's the one thing that changed their life because they had maybe never traveled before. They had a very small class of people that they are now totally connected with, and the classes that they offered there are just life changing and memorable from the inside. And I don't know if you want to get into kind of this again, maybe current events of what's happening over there. Maybe we can get into that, but at the moment, it's just. Staying on the subject that I'm at, these people trusted in that. And now when I go and talk to them, they're like, oh, we love this place. We encourage this place. We want people to go and experience it more often. They have trips and adventures. They can go on summer, during summer break, they get 18, 20 people to go on just a long week vacation to the Roxton campus, stay in the Abbey. They love this. And we'll add one antidote is, that Vancouver campus, and I don't have the numbers. I kind of wish I had them in front of me, but they graduated small, and now they are graduating hundreds of kids or students or young adults or professionals every year. They're multiplying. And the Vancouver experience, you can go there for one, or you can go there for many semesters and have a life-changing experience. Technically abroad, but it's right over, right over the border. So I think that's a great opportunity for anybody to really take advantage of.
I will say, I never went to Roxton, and it was my one big regret.
Same regret, right? Same. I say the same thing all the time.
It's my one, and I tell it to all my students. I'm like, if you have the opportunity to go, do it. Go. Like, it was my biggest regret because, I see the students today like, oh, they took a weekend trip to Prague or a weekend trip to Paris or a weekend trip to Italy. Or, of one of my students last year, she went and then during spring break visited family she had in Austria and like and it was just like a train ride. Like, I can't even wrap my head around that, because a train ride to me is Long Island to Manhattan is
Right.
2 hours.
Right.
Like, oh, it's
Across the Jersey shoreline.
exactly. 2 hours they were in Paris. I'm like, how could that be? It doesn't make sense to me, and they would say, like, they had, like, the students, they had their own group chat. They have they all text together even after they finished their time there. It's almost like they had their
Facebook
own little
groups.
fraternity together. Of,
Yep. They
like,
have their own little Facebook groups, and I've
yeah,
seen year after year after year, and they just stick together, stay together.
yeah. It's
Lifelong.
and that's magic, right? To be able to be like, hey, this 20 or 30 people had a shared experience that they'll remember forever, carry with them forever, and will stay in touch forever because of that.
And those are the kind of people that I'm so looking forward to interview on this podcast.
Yeah.
Those are the people who have experiences, and it doesn't just have to be the Roxton experience, but those people who have lifelong friends, who have lifelong relationships, who attribute their life to back to FDU. Those are the people I totally want to get in touch with,
Yeah,
and communicate with.
My very, very best friend, he was my best man at my wedding. He and I met each other at FDU through the film program. He was a year younger than me, and we've become like, I don't have a brother. He is the closest thing to a brother that I have, and I wouldn't have had him had it not been for meeting him at this program in this school. And we have a lifelong friendship. Our kids are friends. Our wives are friends. And that just happened because I said, hey, we were in a film class together, and he goes, how come you made this dumb movie that everybody loved, and I spent all this time on this really hard movie that nobody understood? I'm like, I don't know, man. Silly works, I guess. People like dumb stuff. I don't know.
I have the same. I have many. My network is very large. While I say I have many friends, I would call them my network. I have lots of people in my network, the very strong core group of friends, all of which are date back to FDU days.
Yeah. And I'm looking over so both of us being alumni, and our hope on this podcast is to bring on alumni and talk to them about their memories, their experiences, their opportunities, and things that they've done. We've got a whole slew of events coming up through the university, which I find so interesting. I'm just kind of looking down the list. So, in particular, on this week on Thursday, there's a career conversations event at the Metro campus, basically allowing students to have conversations with industry professionals and kind of open their eyes a little bit, So I think there's such a...
Yeah, and I can actually tell you a little more about that, because
Sure.
What it is they asked alumni who are professionals in their career to come and speak and talk and kind of have a networking opportunity. So while it's not a mentorship per se, it's not a one-on-one conversation. It was almost like speed dating in a career conversations. It wasn't a panel of 2 or 3. This was, and I say was, the date was actually last Thursday. This was a handful of core alumni professionals, and they just kind of speed dated, and any students or grads or even alumni looking for jobs or conversations and increase their network were able to come out, talk it out, and it was a very successful, and I think they're going to do it again. And this will hopefully be carried out through both alumni relations and career services combined. It was a really great experience, and I think they're going to have great success with that going forward.
That's awesome. Because, like, a lot of times students, it's one thing for their professors to give them feedback or their parents to give them feedback, but people that are industry professionals that will sit down with them and say, hey, this is what I think you should look at, or have you tried this? Sometimes you hear it from a different perspective. That sort of light bulb goes off again, like, ooh, maybe I should try that. Maybe this person did something that I like, and I want to try to lean toward that. I think it's a very valuable resource because our community of our university has a lot of alumni, but we're still, not a massive university. We have the ability to bring people back and have them come and say, hey, let's talk and have a conversation, because that will be more valuable sometimes for somebody than a million other things that I could think of off the top of my head, but like just having that like that little conversation that says, "Hey, this is what I did. What do you think about this? Have you tried this?" It just gives a different vibe to it,
Yeah. I think some of the other things on that calendar, we've got Admitted Students Day, right? This is a great opportunity for alumni to come out and again, talk with the students, say, thanks for, being part of our network. Now you're a part of my network, We've got Grad Salute. Alumni can go and show up to that where we're literally celebrating people who are now going to graduate and go out into the world and become graduates. I think a fun one for our department really is a dinner and a show, right? So our thespians, our actors are out there. And while do you know the show this year? I had it. I cleaned my desk this week, and
they were literally rehearsing it the other night, and I was hearing them sing it in the hallways. I forget.
Yeah, but the dinner and a show is literally some of the it's exactly that. For a couple bucks, you go have some really great, and guys, while you're listening to this, if you've never been to an FDU catered event, they have the best lamb chops, chops.
Oh my God, the food. They put a spread out during the FDU Film MFA residency in January that I was like, are we at a wedding? There was so much food. It was unbelievable.
So yeah, the lamb chops, but and I'm going to just jump down way to the bottom of this events list really, because FDU Forward, it will be May 29th, or actually it may have moved to June 5th, but FDU Forward, which was originally Charter Day, has been now renamed, but still a great, huge fundraising opportunity for the university. But those lamb chops are there, and I so look forward to the lamb chops. And then we'll have commencement in May. I think that's May 14th. And
that's it's at MetLife Stadium.
MetLife Stadium, yeah. Mike.
It's so wild that you're like walking on the field where the Jets and the Giants play. It's such a really cool experience. Right. I want to kind of touch on Admitted Students Day for a little bit, right? So, and this is going to piggyback into sort of what's going on with the university. Recently, there was an announcement that certain programs are going to be what they call twilighted over the next 2 years, right? Some programs in the arts, and people don't understand why that is, and people are having a hard time with it, right? And on a business side of it, there's one side, and there's a logistics. There's a lot to it that I don't really know all the bones about it, and I'm not going to get into it too deeply. But what I did as sort of a kind of, I'm going to call it like an ad campaign or a promotional campaign, right? I did a bunch of interviews with FDU film seniors working on their thesis films. And over the last 2.5 weeks, I have rolled out minute-long reels as well as like behind-the-scenes photos of their thesis films. From March 15th through March 19th, our FDU_arts Instagram account has had 36,943 views.
Say it again.
36,943 views.
I'm curious if you have a benchmark to before that.
It's an uptick of 1,208% from the previous month.
Nice job.
The previous month had 2,400 views.
And probably just a substantially less amount of posts.
Yeah. Significantly less. And on top of that, not only did we have that many views, right? We also had over 75% of the views were people that don't even follow the account. All outside views from other universities, other people. Our highest viewed reel had like 3,000 views. Our highest photo one had 5,000 views. And then we had over, 5,000 shares of the posts? And I did that organically, for free. Yeah. Zero money, just me posting little vignettes, and I tagged the students, and the students reposted. Are you also on a hashtag at all? Oh yeah, we have a whole bunch of different hashtags that
Share the hashtag. Our listeners want to hear it.
So basically it's FDU Arts or FDU Film we used, as well as a whole bunch of, and I tagged FDU_arts, and it just blew up, and no one can believe how we got this many views. It took me 2 hours a day, right, to produce a reel every other day and photos every other day, and just pushed it out. I made a QR code that tagged the Admitted Students Day, and we saw a huge uptick of people going to the Admitted Students Day registration site just from doing nothing, just organic, no money involved, just creating content.
And so we keep saying we're gonna piggyback off each other. So I'm gonna piggyback off of that, because what I really, first of all, amazing, nice job. But depending on what happens with the School of the Arts, depending on what happens with programs that, you were kind of alluding to earlier, there's still going to be room for that film major. There's still going to be room for that graphic design major and the animation major, because you're never going to get rid of AI is not going to replace that. Right. So, the university, Michael Avatroni, President Avatroni, put a recent post on his LinkedIn talking about health plan forward, health forward, which is his kind of double down on jobs that won't be replaced by AI. Right? These are physicians, these are nurses, these are phlebotomists, you name it. If it's health first, and the other, everything healthcare related is really. I'm going to tangent just for a minute. Sure. I've been to 5 dentists in New Jersey. Every single one of my dentists were alumni of the dental school at Fairleigh Dickinson. Is that amazing? Like, that's amazing.
Wild. My accountant is an alumni from FDU, and I didn't even know it.
The point I'm making is the university is gung-ho about keeping jobs that don't get replaced by AI. And I love the idea of making sure that you and I have a platform that can support our school also, right? So that while I don't know, we're calling it School of the Arts, back then we're calling whatever we're calling it, the film department, the graphic design department, that those people, are always going to have a place to work and teach and educate and drive and motivate. And the students need to hear us say, there's a place for you in New Jersey in our department, because, and I'm just going to throw this out there, Netflix is right here in Monmouth County. They're coming. Yeah. And they're going to need every single one of the skills that we're about to, our school is about to provide. It's an opportunity.
And not just that, like, the state of New Jersey in particular is offering tremendous tax incentives for production companies to come there.
Come here.
Because of the fact that, like, people are getting priced out of Los Angeles to make movies, and they want to come to the East Coast. And the funny thing about New Jersey is, like, you could have a city area like Jersey City or Newark, but then you could have, like, farm country, an hour and a half away. Like, they have so many different types of backdrops they could use in a 1.5 hour drive, give or take, at most.
I'm just going to make films of the beach. That's all.
That's it. That's exactly. Yeah. It's just, you could film a million movies in Red Bank or Tom's River or whatever, but the thing is, and I especially when it comes to things like graphic design, animation, web development, film, look at the way the world goes now. Like, everybody is on TikTok. Everybody makes Instagram reels. Everybody's making content on YouTube. That is not going away.
I remember starting my career, and we were always adjusting our designs and our technology to be able to adhere to the people who are. I'll give you an example. You have to put it in print and online. Well, why? Because not all of the boomers are going to be online. Well, guess what?
They all are now.
I hate to say it, but the boomers are all online, and soon the boomers are not going to be here. Like, the only generation are going to be people who only know the internet generation. Yeah. Right. And, I'm not far behind, I guess, but, but,
you're ahead of the curve.
That's right. But I mean, while print, we still print some things in the world of marketing, but a whole lot less. It's few and far between. It's digital, and there's got to be people who can do the digital things.
Yeah. It's and it's only going to evolve. There's going to be more opportunities to make more digital content. And as things sort of change, like, you know, anybody can tap into the resources that are available and utilize that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know that even as an alumni, you can audit classes?
Is that true? I
And
didn't know that. So I'm about to, because I could use a nice class or two.
I'm pretty sure that as an alumni, I think you're allowed to audit a class every so often or so. I think so.
I'm going to
So
find out more about that. I'll bring it to our next
yeah,
conversation.
and you can like get a refresher course on something if you wanted to, learning the new stuff. But there's, you know, that aside, right? So one of the things that I always find so special is how, especially nowadays, I watch the students and they're so different from when we were students. They're so different. Like they're the same, but they're different, right? They all are so they're really kind to each other, right? They all accept each other no matter where they come from. Especially when I go on walk on any of the students' film sets, right? They have everybody there. They bring everybody in. Everybody's got a job. Everybody has a role. We've had alumni come back to work on some of the thesis films, and they're teaching the freshmen how to hold the boom, or they're teaching a freshman how to rig up a lens and stuff like that. And it's so cool to watch this sort of collaboration go on.
We're a alumni platform, so I'll just say that when they leave, these seniors, and they connect with the current alumni that they still consider their peers, it's going to be great to see them kind of reflect back on what we were just reflecting on, those friends that we had back then, our classmates that were influential, that were supportive, our career opportunities going forward. It's just going to be great to see. I remember you're talking about the senior thesis weeks. The School of the Arts always had a great opportunity for the film kids to, and I keep calling them kids, I apologize. The film students of, they had a great opportunity to present their films, and everybody came to the theater at Morristown and just watched the movies and cheered like it was the Muppet Show, just roaring over each person's film, no matter how good or bad it was, or how long or short it was. And there's always going to be the standouts, right? There's always going to be the standouts. There are people who just are dedicated to their craft, and they want to get it right, and they spend those extra hours, and they do the work, and they have the vision, they have the talent to get there, and they have, even the drive and what's the word I'm looking for, when they motivate friends to give of their time, talent, and treasure to come over and be an actor in a film. These people don't have to do it for them, but they motivate them to come and be a part of their life and their work. So I can appreciate that work ethic from all of them. But yeah, they're going to be lifelong friends. They're going to be alumni, and they're going to come on our show and tell us exactly how it was for them at school and post school. Where are they then? Where were they then? Where are they now?
My kind of like sort of last thought that I have for tonight's conversation is, oftentimes, especially when students are fresh out of college, right? And they're still trying to find their place because they have this 4 years of community, and now they're on their own again, and they're trying to find their job or whatever it is they're trying to do, right? A student recently came to me, having a hard time that first year out of school, right? And I want them to know that they can reach out to me, or they can reach out to any alumni and say, hey, we have a community. There's a connection out there. We may not be able to land you in that job right away, but we might be able to open a door and make a conversation happen for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to people, whether it's on LinkedIn or on Facebook or wherever. If you're one of us, right? If you are of our family of people, we want to help you. We want to be there for you because there was somebody there for us before, right? There was somebody that picked us up when we were in a low spot. One of my closest, dearest friends is Mark Sapara, who was my boss when I worked in admissions. I still talk to him once a week, all the time. When I was young and I was in low place, I'd call up Mark, or he would just call me and say, hey, how you doing? We would just have a conversation, and he would just pick me up off my, bootstraps, if you will, and be like, it's going to get easier. It's going to get better. And we'll be friends forever because he's always there for me, and and vice versa. And there's a strong community out there, folks, and I want you to all be able to find us and stay in touch and share your memories and share your stories with us as well.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of put it out there. If you want to tell your story, this is to our listeners, right? Yeah. If you want to tell your story, reach out. We're available. I don't know if we're going to give our information over the sound waves or on a web page, or how we're going to give away our information, but get in touch. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. Mike, you're on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I'm happy to talk to me. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to get you on our podcast. We'll talk about where you've been and where you're going, and we can bring you home.
Yeah. Whether you want to do it over Riverside, which we're using tonight, or if you want to meet on campus or wherever and have a conversation, we would love to sit down and have conversations and just talk about memories. I'm a memory lane guy, and I'm a rambler too.
Right. And I'll tell you, I totally want to hear from those Roxton people.
Yeah.
I absolutely want to hear from School of the Arts people. Right. But this is not limited to those two. This
is open to everybody.
I want to hear from the Silverman people. I want to hear from the Vancouver people. I want to hear from anybody. There's so many alumni who are so supportive in the university and want to tell their story, because I think it will help influence more alumni to get involved. But I think it'll also, people who are on, young people are on the edge of deciding which university to come to. Maybe they'll get an antidote or a feeling or a motivation or a little light inside that says, wow, FDU is the right place for me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so many opportunities and so many doors that it can open if you know where to look and who to reach out to, and just be open to it and be receptive to things. Mike, this was such a great conversation. I look forward to doing this and many, many more.
Without a doubt. I appreciate it.
This is going to be a special conversation, and I really hope people enjoy it and want to be a part of it. And like we said, get a hold of us. We'll reach out to you. You can reach out to us. We'll get you on the show. We'll talk. You can share your stories, and take a walk down memory lane and come back home with us. So.
Well, thank you for. I mean, we'll do a lot of this. I will be able to. Hopefully, we'll do this every Tuesday or every other Tuesday. I'll be happy to. The very next person that reaches out to me, you're the next person that, or either of us, you're the very next person to be interviewed on our call, on our chat here. And don't forget, bring your current events, because I think it's going to be super important to see what's happening at the university, and we can all, as alumni, get involved.
Yeah,
I think it's super important with our time, talent, and treasure that the university we're all giving back.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to wrap this up. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.